the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. That's why I created the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Every show is 30 minutes, and the guests are my Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals. They're so wonderful. Financial advisors, divorce attorneys, mediators, divorce coaches, therapists, and more. We talk about every subject that you can even think of having to do with divorce. The podcast is meant to empower you and inspire you and make you feel really, really confident so that you can have a good divorce outcome and a great post-divorce life. You can find the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found, and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling. Before we get started, I want to talk about fear, doubt, and self-sabotage. 3 things that divorcing women are prone to. And I remember that when I was going through my divorce. And I really wish I would have had the opportunity to work with a coach like Michelle Heffron to help me with those emotions, to help me get back on track, and to give me a life that I love. It would have been so much easier. It would have taken years of figuring it out myself by working with a coach. Michelle is so wonderful. She is a former corporate executive. She's very smart, so she can help you if you're thinking about what you want to do professionally. But also, Michelle is a coach for love and what comes next. And what I find is a lot of women who are going through a divorce, they want to date again right away, but they haven't really come to terms with what happened in the marriage, the decisions that they made, and getting themselves to a place to call in the one is what the program that Michelle teaches is about. Calling in the one and finding love after divorce. So I would highly recommend having a consult with Michelle. You can find her at michelleheffron.com. I also want to tell you about a really good divorce attorney in North Carolina named John McKnight. And John has been a divorce attorney for 21 years. He's dedicated, he's passionate about helping people get through a divorce with the best possible divorce outcome and the best possible co-parenting relationship. He's a skilled attorney, he's on your side, and he can guide you through these complex times. If you want to learn more, you can find John at mcknightlawyers.com. And you can find both John and Michelle in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Every divorce is difficult. Every divorce case is unique. But when there's a lot of assets and a lot of wealth, the complexity of a divorce becomes exponentially more. And today I want to talk about high net worth divorce, the challenges that it brings, and how, if you are listening to this, if you're in a high net worth category and you're going through a divorce, how we can make it easier for you. My guest has been a divorce attorney for 23 years. He's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His name is Odalo Ohiku, and he's also now a divorce coach. He decided to get the certification. We're going to tell you why in the podcast. Hi, Odalo.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Good. Great to see you. Thanks for taking time to be on the show.
Of course. I'm happy to be here.
So in your 23 years of practicing, you've probably had divorce cases of all financial situations, those who didn't have a lot of money all the way through these high net worth divorces. Why is high net worth divorce so complicated?
It's complicated just because usually high net worth individuals, they had more assets. They have multiple homes. They have a home in Florida. They have a vacation home. They have a lake home. They have multiple businesses usually, they started together. They have all these different income streams. So some of it, and sometimes they have assets outside of the United States. So it's just they're more complex because usually those couples have more assets. They have more things that are part of the divorce process. And because they have more things, it's going to be more complicated than just a simple divorce.
Okay, now I've always heard like, oh, the more money you have, the more your divorce is going to cost. Is that true in every case? And how can you make sure that that doesn't happen?
It's not true in every case. That's more of a misnomer. It depends on the people, and it depends on their mindset. So if you have two high net worth individuals, sometimes in the marriage, it's only one of the individuals high net worth, but sometimes you get both are high net worth individuals. So it really depends on their mindset. So if they have the mindset they don't want to, they want to look at the big picture, right? They want to look at the business of getting divorced. They've already reconciled with their marriage is ending, and now they just have to deal with the business of the divorce. We got to separate these accumulated assets. If they can focus on that, legal fees don't have to be astronomical. It's the emotions that get involved in the divorce, or it's just like the mindset is wrong. They want to fight about things and really not focus on the business part of the divorce.
All right. Now, in these high net worth divorce cases, if you could give me a percentage, just an estimate, how many can be mediated and how many actually get to trial and how many just go down the road of litigation and then eventually settle?
That's an excellent question, Jackie. And I'm a mediator myself. So if you're going to ask me how many of them can be mediated, as a mediator, my answer is going to be all of them can be mediated. And I truly believe that. Now, beyond that, you want to make sure that their mind is primed for the mediation process. So although all of them can be mediated, maybe all of them won't be as successful as they could be because the mindset is off. In terms of percentage of cases that go, circling back to your question, in terms of the percentage of divorce cases that actually go before a judge because the parties can't agree on anything, they can't reach any form of a marital settlement agreement. I would say it's in Wisconsin at least probably 10%. Most of the cases resolve with some form of a marital settlement agreement. And then if they don't, they reach maybe, let's say, a marital settlement agreement on most of the issues. So then it's only one issue that might go before the judge.
Okay. So, not a lot. And you keep saying the word mindset. So, this is a good time to bring this up. I want to tell my listeners. So Odalo's been a divorce attorney for 23 years, and he recently decided to get a certification as a divorce coach. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to open up a practice and start seeing people for coaching, but you got the certification because you wanted to help people with mindset, it sounds like. And I want people to know this. Not a lot of divorce attorneys have divorce coaching certifications, but I think you're going to see more and more of them getting it. Because if Odalo puts on his divorce coach hat, he can help you get to that better mindset and make better, smarter divorce decisions. And then your attorney's fees are going to be less because you're going to be more reasonable and look at it more through a business lens. What do you think about that?
Jackie, that is absolutely right. It is the mindset, because part of it is we're all human. We all have our we all have our baggage. We all have our emotions. We all have our feelings. And really, when you're in it, you as an individual, you might not see that you're being hamstrung by your baggage, by your emotions. And then that's where the divorce coach comes in. The divorce coach can be your partner in helping you identify your blind spots, things that you aren't seeing, things that you aren't realizing are holding you back because you're so involved in it, you're wrapped up in it. And the divorce coach can help you, work through that and help you really kind of pivot so that you are focused on the right things moving forward.
Could not agree with this whole thing more. That is so smart and it just makes a lot of sense. But let's back up here and talk about some of the reasons why people can't make these decisions. Like I would think somebody would be going through a divorce and they say to themselves or their divorce attorney, "I just want him to suffer. He put me through so much pain, and now he has a new girlfriend and he's getting remarried and he should suffer. So I am going to just take him to the cleaners, And I mean, I don't mean to laugh, it's not funny, but I think that's the mindset of someone who's so hurt and so in pain that they can't see that they have a really good divorce settlement in front of them and they don't want to take it because of anger.
That's true. They're wrapped up in the emotions, or they're wrapped up in being caught off guard, or they're wrapped up in the blind side, right? Or maybe their spouse is further along in the divorce process, thinking about it. So they've been thinking about it for months already, and then the other spouse gets caught off guard. So sometimes it's hard to overcome the blind side, or the hurt or the pain. So that's all that they can see. So then if that's all that they can see, they want eye for an eye. They want retribution. You did this to me, so now I'm going to do this to you. You caused me to suffer, I want you to suffer. And the role of the divorce coach is to have them pull back and think about that. Now, what actually will that accomplish? And if it accomplishes anything, it's probably going to be very fleeting, momentary, and not lasting. And it's not going to help them moving forward, in terms of divorcing.
You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, we're talking about understanding high net worth divorce. My guest is divorce attorney Odalo Ohiku, who is the founder of Ohiku Law Office in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's been practicing for 23 years, and he also just became a certified divorce coach so that it could help him in his practice. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how to protect high value assets during divorce proceedings. And then we're going to talk about some financial considerations in asset division. And then we'll talk about, if we have time, managing your business interests and professional practices. We'll be right back. We've all heard of the AARP, the organization that supports and empowers Americans who are 50 and older. Well, guess what? There's an organization called the NASDF, the National Association for Single and Divorced Families, that supports men and women going through a divorce and who are single parents. It's a similar concept to the AARP, but what the NASDF does is it offers discounts and benefits to people who are members. One of the benefits is they offer insurance for child support. I mean, this is amazing. Had I had the NASDF when I was going through a divorce, it would have helped me so much. So many wonderful benefits and discounts, and it's so inexpensive to belong. If you want to learn more, go to nasdf.org. I also want to tell you about a really good divorce lawyer in Texas named David Hyman. David has been practicing divorce law since 1991 and has built a reputation for both skill and compassion. He went through his own divorce, he understands the challenges, he's very compassionate. And whether you have a straightforward case or you're facing a complex divorce with custody issues, David offers strategic thinking and dedicated attention. If you want to learn more about David, you can find him at hymanlawfirm.com. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, my guest is Odalo Ohiku. He's a divorce attorney in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's the founder of Ohiku Law Office, and his website, by the way, is ohikulaw.com. Is that right? Or I think it might just be ohiku.com.
We shortened it, ohiku.com.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Ohiku.com. Odalo and I are talking about high net worth divorce. And Odalo, I want to get into if someone's listening to this and they have all these assets and they're really worried. And you know how at the beginning of the divorce, like there's no trust, everyone's walking on eggshells. You're afraid you're going to come home and your bank account's going to be emptied out. How do you protect your assets?
Another very good question. What I would say is, and this is something that's frequent, Jackie, the way to protect assets is to one, you got to know what the assets are. And sometimes people don't know what the assets are. They don't know the extent of the assets, or they don't know all of the assets. So I guess as a threshold question would be for them, make sure that you know all of the assets, or start compiling a list of all the assets. Because if you don't know them, how can you protect your fair share of the assets?
Okay, but what if you just don't even know and you don't know where to begin?
If you don't know where to begin, I would say if you're working with an attorney or a professional, start with as much as you know, right? And then if it's just where it's just you're not making any type of progress, then there's things that are called discovery, where an attorney, or you can use the legal process to help you clarify or determine what those assets are. You have to, as part of the divorce process, each party has to fairly and accurately disclose assets. It's called a financial disclosure. So you each would have to prepare a financial disclosure statement or affidavit and swear to it. So, Jackie, that's how you would get the information.
Okay, so what you're saying then is even before discovery, even before you are required to complete these documents of discovery, you should try to make a list as best you can in your head and know what the assets are. And then can you put any freezes on accounts? Like, let's say you have 50,000 in your checking account and you're afraid that your ex, soon to be ex, is going to take out the money.
Yeah, I would say you shouldn't do anything unilaterally. I think and my best advice to clients would be to involve the court process. And usually, when if the divorce case has been filed, there's usually all these types of provisions in there for both parties, saying that you cannot dispose of an asset over usually like $500. So you would have to get the court's permission to dispose of property, or to spend over a certain threshold amount.
Oh, that's comforting. Okay, so another idea I have, and tell me what you think of this. Like, now I got divorced in 2008, so I don't even remember this, but the everything online and all the statements online was not available like it is today. So if I was getting divorced right now, I would take pictures of every account statement online, take a screenshot so that you know that on August 20th or whatever day it is, here's how much we had in our account. Now, this way, if you look at the account a month later and there's a lot less, you have proof and you can get that money back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's smart, Jackie. That I would say that would be a sound decision, a sound guidance, because it's common that there is they call it spoliation, or waste. That there is these assets, and then now the divorce case is filed. One of the parties is starting to waste money, or spend it, run up cards, or start making these big purchases, or just depleting, draining the accounts. So if you have a snapshot where you have proof that on such and such a date, this account had this much in it, then yes, you would have like tangible proof of what it was. And then you will be asking, and you or the attorney will be asking the court to say, look, the other party spent or used or disposed this share of the funds. I want my fair piece, or equitable distribution of those monies, or that
Okay.
asset.
And also, if you're listening to this and you haven't done that and you're like, oh no, you can get bank statements every month and you can say, like, at the end of July, here it is. Now, why is there $75,000 less in it at the end of August? That's kind of the same thing. But why do people do that? Why do they spend a ton of money? Because I've heard that before. Are they just like, well, I'm going to lose it all anyway, and I don't want to give it to her, so I'm going to buy myself whatever I want? Is that like a mindset?
I think it's totally a mindset thing, because really, I mean, it's disposing of assets, and you're really not getting away with it. What you're doing, you're going to end up having to contribute or balance the other side, of the equation anyway. So you're not getting away with anything, and it really doesn't make any sense. So yes, I would say that's a mindset issue where divorce coaching can help someone say, look, what are you doing? What are you really trying to accomplish by doing that? It's really probably going to backfire on you anyway. You're not
Right,
getting away with anything
you're gonna have to pay it back.
anyway. Correct.
Okay, next thing I wanna ask you about are these financial considerations, meaning asset division. So for people who are really newly separated, explain the difference between marital property and non-marital property and how that works in divorce.
Very good question. So marital property would be anything that the couple acquired, you know, during a marriage. So once they're married, any property that they acquired during the marriage, that's considered marital property. Non-marital property would be things that, let's say, that the party already had prior to the marriage. Now, the tricky thing with that is, with some non-marital property can become marital property if it's commingled with marital property. So, for instance, if I have, let's say, $50,000 in an account before I get married, and I get married and then I then transfer some of those funds into like a joint account. Then the other party can say those funds have now been commingled with marital property, so it's marital property. So that's one thing. And then let's say an inheritance that you receive during a marriage. Although you receive it during a marriage, it's exempted, it's excluded from marital property. So that would still remain that party's individual property because it was inherited.
Unless you commingle it.
That's correct, unless you
Oh my
commingle.
gosh. Well, so I guess my advice for anyone listening, it would be really too late. What should we tell, because I would say to anybody, even if you are like the most blissfully married person, just don't do it. It's just not a good idea to commingle like inheritance and money that you had before. But, I'm a skeptic. I'm divorced,
Right.
why would I be any other way? But if somebody's listening and they already commingled, what could you say to make them feel better?
I would say to have an honest conversation with their spouse or with their significant other, and just say, well, I know that this property has been commingled. Let's have a discussion about it. This is how I feel about that property. I'm not so sure that it should have been commingled. It wasn't my intention to have that property commingled. So let's have a discussion. And the other thing, Jackie, I would say it's an unpopular belief. People think that they have to have a lot of money or assets to have a prenuptial agreement. And you don't. It's really looking into, trying to avoid issues, and it doesn't mean that you don't love the person that you're going to marry. It just means that you all are being smart about, getting married and what you're doing, and you're trying to look ahead. So in the event that the marriage is dissolved, you guys have saved a lot of headache and pain because you've already thought about, how your property will be divided.
I love it. Now, the part about you saying have a conversation, these are the kinds of conversations that take place in mediation. So if you have commingled funds and you know in your heart you really had $100,000 inheritance that really should be yours, you are so much more likely to get that if you go to mediation. If you go to court, forget it. It's the law. All the gloves are off. You're not getting that. The judge is going to follow the law. And most states, Odalo's in Wisconsin, but I'm in Illinois. Most states have that same law. But if you go to mediation, that is when the conversations can come up. It's important to me. I was given this money by my mom. I feel very strongly that it should still be mine and we should be taking it out of the marital asset division.
Absolutely, Jackie. And I'm a mediator. So as the mediator, if I were presented with that scenario, what I would do is I would have them, we would all talk. I would have us brainstorm the issues, not just the commingling issue, but just all the issues that they want to talk about, that they want to address, so that we have them all. And then I would lay some ground rules on terms of if mediation is going to be successful, and we're going to make progress. You lay ground rules just to keep the parties in the right mindset again. and then we would discuss it. I would have them discuss it, and I would probably start them off, maybe together, and then separate them so that I can get both of their, perspectives. And then I probably bring them back, after caucusing with each side, and then we just have that conversation. And then as a mediator, I would look for common values, commonality, anywhere that I see commonality, and then we would build from there.
I want to go over something else. Everybody thinks equitable distribution means 50-50. You're going to split everything 50-50. But equitable doesn't mean equal. So tell me cases where you wouldn't split all the marital assets 50-50.
I'll give you an example that is common, but I'm actually dealing with it right now. So I have a couple where there's an age gap, and I wouldn't say on which side, but there's an age gap of, more than 10 years, and the senior person in the relationship already had, I would say, a quite a bit of monies in pension, 401k, those type of accounts. They get married, right? And usually with the marriage, you're supposed to pension, 401k, those accounts, you're looking at just dividing those things, right? But due to the amount that this party had, it wouldn't necessarily be fair to that party to evenly distribute those funds because there was already such a significant amount brought in. So that would be an example.
Okay. And so that makes sense. What are some other things like earning potential? Maybe somebody doesn't have the ability to go back to work. Maybe they have like some disability and they can't work. May
Really good question. Yeah, really good question. I know where you're going with it. So what you would do is you would look at the length of the marriage, or at least in Wisconsin, you look at the length of the marriage. And in Wisconsin, it's kind of like a 10-year bar. So if the parties have been married for 10 years, then that's what really when Wisconsin courts will start looking at the one party paying, maintenance to the other party. So if, let's say, there was one of the parties was a homemaker, and because the party was a homemaker, that party didn't do additional things to advance, that party's career. So then the court will look at that party's current earnings capacity, and they would look at the working party's earning capacity, and then look at the lifestyle. What was the lifestyle that the parties enjoyed during the marriage? And then what amount will it take to maintain, so maintenance, maintain the same standard of living that the party enjoyed, during the marriage?
Okay, so again, you're talking about if you went to court. In mediation, this is all negotiable. What's so wonderful about mediation is that you can sit down and you can craft these agreements. You can say things like, I'll not have any maintenance, but I want a higher asset. I want it all up front. And so you can really craft an agreement that both people think is fair. Both walk away thinking they're not like in love with the agreement, but they don't think they got like totally screwed or anything like that. It's somewhere in the middle. It's like, this seems pretty fair. I can live with this and let's move on.
Absolutely. And I do advise that parties actually attempt mediation because usually, if you can walk out with a mediated agreement, that's much better than the unknown. And then you got to keep in mind, when if you have a divorce trial, that judge or that person is not going to have the time to invest in your case as the parties do themselves. Just not vested. Just it's not feasible for the court to invest the same amount of time and energy and sincerity as the parties. Just it's not possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And then two other things I think come out of mediation. One, people comply with what was agreed upon. Like, I went to post litigation twice because it just wasn't, we just had a terrible experience. There weren't the resources back then that there are now. And that's just a waste of money and time and makes your relationship even worse. And if you go to mediation, you are abiding by a law that you helped design. So what are the odds that you're going to say, I'm not sticking to this when you designed it? They're very low. And then also, you're going to have such a better relationship with your ex spouse. The two of you are going to just be so much more amicable and nicer to each other because you both decided on your agreement.
I agree absolutely because they have their buy-in. They feel like they were a part of the process, and it was their agreement that they're following. It's not the court's agreement that's being, dictated to them. So I agree. They're more likely to follow their own agreement. Absolutely.
Wow. We're out of time and we didn't even get into tax implications and some other stuff. But Odalo, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
Very happy to have been here. Thank you, Jackie.
So if you want to talk to Odalo, you can ask him about the tax implications or anything else. You can consult with him by going to ohiku.com. You can also find him in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling, which is divorcedgirlsmiling.com. And you can go there to listen to more podcasts, read articles, or sign up for my free consult. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.